the Cabinet Secretary shall ensure that the measures are pronounced on the appropriate date. That is why it was done yesterday on 15th, because in Tanzania and Uganda and the rest of the East African community, that is the date that was agreed on. So that is provided under Section 40, subsection 2. But this subsection 3 is the one that I want you to pay keen attention to, and which Kenyans should listen to. On the same date that the budget policy highlights and the revenue-raising measures are pronounced, the Cabinet Secretary shall submit to Parliament a legislative proposal. In the old Act, it was finance bill. It was very clear, finance bill. But here, it has talked about legislative proposal on the same date that the Cabinet Secretary is reading the highlights and making pronouncements on revenue-raising measures. That is the date that legislative proposal setting out the revenue-raising measures for the national government, together with the policy statements in expounding on those measures, will be introduced in Parliament. I hope I am clear on that. That CS, after the day he was making the public pronouncement, is the day that the legislative proposal should have been introduced in Parliament. 4, and that is the final one, I'm reading. Following the submission of the legislative proposal of the Cabinet Secretary under 3 above, the relevant committee of the National Assembly, now read Finance Committee, shall introduce a finance bill in the National Assembly. Any finance bill introduced in the National Assembly before the Cabinet Secretary reads the budget highlights and policy revenue-raising measures is therefore illegal, irregular, and procedural, and I dare say that Parliament has been treated to some drama. As a matter of fact, what was voted on last Wednesday probably was a government paper, a government policy paper, but it cannot be the finance bill that is contemplated in law under Section 40. I have had some some discussion with the Parliamentary Budget Office saying that the courts made a ruling that finance bill should be passed before Appropriations Act. That is true. I am aware of that. But that court ruling did not set aside Section 40 of the Public Finance Management Act. As a matter of fact, it made it clear. The courts made it clear that immediately after the Cabinet Secretary pronounces or makes pronouncement on budget highlights and revenue-raising measures, then finance bill should be introduced immediately in Parliament or National Assembly to deal with it, finish, and then goes to appropriation bill. That is what the law says. And that could be done from Tuesday or immediately after Thursday yesterday when the budget highlights were pronounced. And therefore, I want to say on behalf of ODM that Kenya Kwanza is fond of breaking laws every day, and that must stop. So I want to persuade Parliament, and the leadership of Parliament should have noticed this anomaly. The House Business stands indicted. The House Business Committee stands indicted for approving an illegality, a procedure that is not contemplated in law. I promised to read Section 25A. I will just read it. Standing Order 25A. I'll just read it. It's a short one. And it says as follows, that the Speaker may designate a suitable place in the chamber or at the bar of the House for the Cabinet Secretary responsible for finance to make a public pronouncement of the budget policy highlights and revenue-raising measures for the national government as contemplated under the Public Finance Management Act. Therefore, standing orders sets or clarifies where the cabinet secretary needs to make this pronouncement. Therefore, now the cabinet secretary cannot go to KICC and make pronouncement on budget policy highlights. It is now National Assembly. It is set out in that. It is not in the Constitution. It's not in the Public Finance Management Act, but it is in our standing orders. I hope I've been clear on that. So, any questions? Maybe you need to ask specific members or individual members of the House Business Committee that question. But I hold or I indict the House Business Committee as a body. That there was negligence on their part, that they have treated Kenyans to some suckers, and that Kenyans' time has been wasted. Look, remember, on Wednesday, the whole day, I was not around here, but I observed that the whole day, the National Assembly of Kenya discussed an illegality, discussed a document that cannot pass for finance bill. But I think, to be honest, and speak from the minority side, I think minority side, where I belong, must now show seriousness and rearrange its membership in the House Business Committee. First, you can't have someone like Kainan, Honorable Kainan, representing minority in the House Business Committee. It doesn't make sense. Honorable Kainan, for all intent and purposes, has left Azimio coalition, and he doesn't shy away from it. He has already left. I wonder how such an individual can still continue to represent the minority in the House Business Committee. And probably the minority side now needs to get some of their members who are a bit more experienced to sit together with the whip and the minority leader in that committee. I know TJ is a member of that committee, if I'm not wrong, TJ Kajwang. I am also aware that he could not attend the House Business Committee for some time because he is on suspension. But we need people who are experienced in that committee. I'm not indicting those members who are there, but sometimes also from experience you get to understand procedures of the House much better. But I don't know exactly whether they raised this concern in the House Business Committee and how come this matter was let to go. If I was present here on Wednesday, I would personally have refused that we don't participate in voting because that was not a finance bill. What we were voting for, I still am looking for a word for it. I'm still looking for a description for what members spend so much time, so many hours voting on. I don't know what it was. This where the yes had 176 members and the nays have 81. And I've been told I was absent. Absent from what? What were we voting on? I'm waiting for finance bill to be introduced properly, and then I vote on it. I thought I started with that. Yes, I saw that communication. I am aware that a number of our members, some voted against the wishes of the party, which was to vote no to this purported finance bill. It is not a finance bill in my view. There are some who were absent. I have clearly indicated that I was out of the country and so I couldn't be present. But that does not, the party needs to, will always ask you, you are not in the house, where were you? And then you explain. And that just demonstrates how our party is methodical. I will respond to that appropriately. I have spoken with the leadership of the party. They very well know where I was. But you see, you couldn't pick some members absent and you leave the chairman out. Chairman was also absent. I was not in the house on Wednesday. And so for equity and fairness, everybody should explain where they were. Apart from the chairman being out there doing an inquiry with the park committee, which inquiry is also very important because we stand for devolution and we want our accounts to be as up to date as possible. So we are just finalizing the report for 2020, 2021 so that we start 2021, 2022. It was necessary we go and inquire on this matter. But there is another member who was also absent with another justification. So So this is the time to bring the justification for being absent. And once that is done, we will see those who are just rebellious, who didn't want to appear in the House, those who voted against, for the bill, and for the purported bill, yet the party had already taken a stand. So that the party will deal with. I don't see any cause of alarm there. It's a non-issue, if you ask me. Yeah. Or maybe a small issue. Let me not call it a non-issue. That may be arrogant, may sound arrogant. It's a small issue. Yes, yeah. I can't speak for all members of Parliament, let alone ODM. I can speak for myself. I'm always present when Parliament is in session. So if I'm in the country and I'm not unwell, which I think I may not be sick from Tuesday, I will always be in the House and do what should be done for the people of Kenya. But I want to still believe that finance bill is going to be procedurally introduced so that we start proper debate on finance bill. We have not discussed the finance bill. What we have discussed is a document which I cannot describe. It's not what is contemplated in law. To again answer your question, I will be in Parliament on Tuesday.
Ndio hisia za Mheshimiwa Mbadi, na kulingana naye anasema kwamba siku ya Jumatano ambapo mswada wa fedha 2023-2024 ulipokuwa ukipigiwa kura, kwa mujibu wake anasema kwamba hakuna sheria ambazo zilifuatwa, na kulingana naye anasema kwamba vipengee kadhaa vilipata kuvunjwa, na kwa hivyo siku ya Jumanne watakapokuwa wanarejea bungeni kutathmini na kupiga kura vipengee hivyo, bila shaka watafanya kila wezalo kuhakikisha kwamba mswada huo umefeli na wanaanza upya katika marekebisho ya mswada wa fedha mwaka 2023-2024. Nikiripotia Mo Radio kutoka jijini Nairobi, jina langu ni Ronnie Reagan.
Mo Radio 88.2 FM. We are in charge.